Like a diamond, I just keep getting better. So keep a bringing on the pressure. Can't break me, you 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 can't break me.
Ian, I just want to introduce again. Ian and I spent some wonderful time with him and Cyprien. Am I saying it right?
Cyprien,
Cyprien. And they taught me so much. And what did we work for 2.5 hours, 3 hours?
Something like that.
I mean, movement
wonderful.
and scene work and text analysis and breathing, the whole 9 yards, like in a totally incorporated class. And if I may, Ian, I know you are interested in bringing more people into your class, and I have to say, people will be lucky to be with you for 3 hours because it's totally so inclusive of everything you need to know as an actor, I believe. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Very cool. And Laura, they factored improvisation in there. So we did a segment in the 3 hours of improv. But just really brilliant work.
Thanks.
And I guess our dream is, I'll speak for myself, and Laura, you can jump in. My dream is just to talk about improv, the fun it is, the benefits of it. Invite people like you, Ian, on just to get a different perspective. Culturally blows my mind, a different cultural perspective, a look on things, and then and more. We played a couple of games last time just for fun and to introduce people to it, and so it's an improvisation podcast.
Cool.
Ian, I was just curious. So could you tell me a little bit, what's your acting improv background? Tell us about you.
All right. So I'm French. I was born in the south of France, but I'm fluent in English because I spent a year in the United States, in Hawaii when I was
Awesome.
9. And then I lived in French Polynesia for a few years, and then I came back to Paris, to France, to go for higher education and then having a job. So initially, I was not an actor. I worked in a bank for 8 years, and then in 2014, I went to a professional acting school, and then since then, I've been acting full time. But before that, it was more hobby or amateur or a passion. Even though I had been doing theater since high school, but like for high school projects, and then I did it when I was in business school. I did improv, and so theater and improvisation have always been a part of my life. And so the school I went to in 2014 is called Le Coq, and it's a school in Paris. It's pretty well known internationally because it has like 60% international students from all around the world. It's a school based on movement mostly, and it's known as a clowning school. So most people say it's clowning, but really it's about movement and physical theater. That's why you have a lot of groups that come out of it, and then they tour the whole world because they don't use speech, and so that's why they're so popular. Like there's a famous group called the Moomin Chants, and maybe you've seen them on TV. They do objects, and they do puppetry of objects, of giant objects, and it's very physical, very poetic. So this is the kind of theater that I was attracted to, and my improv background is that I started when I was in business school, and when I started, there was a thing called le match d'improvisation, the improvisation match, and it looks like theater sports. It looks like comedy sports. It's the francophone version of it. It's not the same origin, but you could say it's the equivalent. And it was very popular. Like in France, it started in the 80s and became very popular. So a lot of francophone countries around the world have it, just like theater sports is spread in Anglophone countries.
Yeah. What's it
And
called, Ian?
Le match d'improvisation,
Ah.
improv match.
Hmm.
Uh, and the paradox is that I started doing that, but quickly I learned about Keith Johnstone because the
Yeah.
person who was giving me classes read Keith's book, took classes with people who had studied Keith's style, and I ended up
Yeah.
learning more of that style than the French style.
I mean,
And I really had a passion for Keith's teachings because I found them so deep. It was more like life teachings or teachings about how to have a creative, fulfilling life,
mhm,
and what he talked about and what he wanted to see on stage was very interesting. He's more about
mhm,
liberating the subconscious, being truly creative, uh,
right.
and that spoke to me a lot. So I ended up doing a lot of workshops and masterclass and intensives with Keith
Hmm.
because he teaches most he passed away unfortunately this year. So
Hmm.
um,
Before I could study with him, I'm jealous. Yeah.
yeah.
Half kidding.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And but before that, he used to teach in Calgary. He had an intensive in Calgary every summer, and then he would teach around the world basically. So for
Awesome.
example, for me, I had to go to London to workshop with him, and
Mhm.
then he came back. I went to Denmark, and I ended up doing it like almost every year for a time, and so he ended up like recognizing me and
Oh,
knowing
Cool.
so
who I
neat.
was, and at some point he was like, "If you've done this class with me before, maybe you should stop." He would say things like that because
Okay.
You're too good.
it's more like um, be on your own now
Okay.
and fly and make your own mistakes. And I think that Keith was often thought about as a guru or
Mm.
someone who had the truth or like the knowledge. And he certainly was. I think he was very inspirational, and he literally came up with ideas that have changed the world. I think his book is in like the 10 books that changed the world in Bloomberg.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I didn't
Yeah,
realize that.
That's
Wow.
so cool.
yeah.
I know he outsells Stanislavski in Germany. Stanislavski
Mhm.
is a acting master teacher. And through the lineage, I'm through with Meisner technique. But that blew my mind that, Keith Johnstone sells more than Stanislavski,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
improv sells more than acting books. Yeah,
He was
in Germany.
so influential, but I think what he really wanted was for someone to take his work and question it and say, I disagree with that, or I agree with that, or here's an application of what you said in another area, or here's an expansion on what you said. But most people take his work and try to really preserve it, which is great.
Mm.
But I think he wanted to be challenged, and because he was always challenging himself. So what taking a workshop with Keith was very it was weird. I think it was weird because it shocked a lot of people. I have students who have worked with him, and they told me I didn't like it so much because it changed me too much, or
Oh,
it made me uncomfortable. But it wasn't uncomfortable in the sense of he was never pushing anyone. He was more like questioning everything.
That's
So
amazing.
he was
Mm.
questioning himself while he was doing it. I'm saying that, but like most people I know were fascinated and loved his workshops. But I'm saying he was unconventional.
right.
Mm.
So, for example, he would say, "Here's an exercise I do. I'm not sure this exercise is very useful now that I think about it. Let's do it. Let's do it anyway. Maybe it will be useful. Maybe it won't. Maybe we'll learn something." Or he would say, "This is something I believed 30 years ago, and I don't believe it anymore, but I'm going to
Yeah.
teach it anyway." So I think he did that on purpose in order to keep his students in the mindset of challenging everything.
Right.
And if you do improvisation and any work that involves spontaneity, you need to be able to throw whatever you believe at every second. And he's often quoted, like there's a quote of an exchange with student, and the student goes, "Why are you saying that this did not work? Earlier you said say yes, and now you say don't say yes. Why?" And he says, "But that was a different scene. So
Exactly. Yeah.
in that scene, maybe saying yes is a good thing, but in this scene, saying yes was not a good thing."
That's a great simple way to put it. Yeah, Laura knows exactly too, you know? Yeah, depends on the scene. Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, it really is. And I'm laughing inside, but Ian, you're talking about such profound things, sharing with Keith about Keith, and because it really is profound what he did and has done and will do, and I don't disagree with your words changing the world. You know what I mean? Because um, yeah, it's just super important. But Laura, as your kind of teacher, they're challenging me every week because and I liked what you said, Ian, about not grasping onto Keith's teachings like it's law, because that's good, because they challenge me anyway, because all I'm doing really is regurgitating Keith. That sounds gross, sorry. I'm repeating his information. And, and, yeah, so but I'm trying to be open all the time, and they all have brilliant ways of looking at stuff and doing
But
stuff that surprises me, and so I don't consider myself a teacher. I call myself a leader of the games, you know.
mm, it's
So
hard to be it's hard to be open to being challenged in the classroom, because we have ego and we want to have authority and power in order to teach. And
mm,
sometimes it's a good thing to have a classroom where no one questions and we just do and we just repeat and we
Mm.
just
100%.
exercise. But sometimes it's good to break these barriers down. And when
Mm,
it was always amazing for students who students go to Keith Johnstone workshop, and for example, in South America, they call him the Pope of Improv, right?
well,
So they call him the Pope. And in South America, the Pope is someone important, like
Right.
totally.
legacy.
Well,
So people come,
and I doubt they're doing that flippantly. They probably really mean that. You
yeah,
know what I mean? It's like
it's both
sincere.
like a joke and
Mm.
respect, but it's
Yeah,
both
Yeah.
at the same time. So,
yeah.
but often people come in the workshop and they're like, "Oh, Keith is over there. Oh, wow. Do you think I can go talk to him?" And they're very like low key, low status,
Yeah.
and he knows that, and he knew that, and he would start his workshops in a low status way. Like,
Mhm.
"Hi guys, can we start? Are you okay? I don't know, man." And he would himself
Mm,
Yeah.
doubt himself. And sometimes you had students challenging him, saying, "I don't think the scene should. I don't think it was a good scene. I think we should have done that." And he would literally say, "Okay, let's try it." And
Yeah.
people were like, "Wow, Keith is taking my suggestion and
Mm.
my criticism." And sometimes after the scene, he would be like, "You were right. You were right. It worked better your way." And people were
Yeah.
amazed by that. Someone who wrote books, established almost the whole discipline of improv, would be able to challenge his own way of teaching and his own teachings. It was
It
amazing.
sounds, yeah, it sounds like he was very good at almost helping people grow up in it
Mhm.
because, as you mentioned, like, yes, sometimes those classes where you want people to just say yes and do exactly what you say, that's very almost juvenile, or like, I think I have a background in teaching and all of that, and it's with the younger children, you need that you are just following rules. There's no freedom of thought because otherwise it's chaos. But once you get a little bit older and you can start bringing in something that is more creative, like, okay, well, instead of today we will recite the alphabet, today you get to pick whatever book you will read and then teach it to the class. Like, to me, it
Mhm.
sounds like Keith Johnstone's good at, here are the tools, but make it your own. And that seems like a level of maturity that to help people in. And that's just an excellent thing.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you are a teacher, and it would
Yes.
be, I don't know if you know that, but he used to be a teacher.
Oh,
He was a teacher for young children
yeah.
because during the war, so many teachers died during the Second
Oh,
World War.
mm,
And he went into, he was like training, he was looking for a job basically, and he went into a intensive teacher training course, and then they would just send them off to various schools to replace the teachers. And so before being improv and theater person, he was just a teacher. And he says that most of the things that he uses as for improv teaching, he learned as a teacher. But
Yeah.
his teaching methods were very unconventional. And if you want to know more, I suggest reading, of course, his book. But there's another really great book, which is his biography by Theresa Robbins Dudek, and it's fascinating to learn about his life. He would teach children. He used to receive like the class that no one wanted. It was like the misfits of the school, because he was
Yeah.
like the younger teacher. So the established teachers would tell him, go and teach this class. You're not gonna achieve anything, of course, because it's a lost cause, right?
Yeah.
And so he basically was trying new things. And one of the things he did was, well, the students were supposed to not be able to read and write, but he had the intuition that they actually knew, but they convinced themselves that they couldn't. So what
Yeah.
he would do was like write things and make mistakes on purpose as a teacher to like misspell word or make grammar errors, and he would
Right.
write like mistakes, and all the kids were like, you made a mistake,
Yeah.
and they loved correcting him. And but if they had been taught the regular way, they would never have expressed the fact that they actually knew the words or had the intuition of how to spell or how grammar works. So he flipped every teaching method.
That's crazy.
And
Yeah.
he got like bad reviews. Actually, he was reviewed by inspectors, like the ministry inspected him, and they were like, "Oh, you can't do that. It's impossible. Yeah, we cannot have that kind of teacher. No one must know." But then
I
No
see
one should
Laura
know.
laughing.
Yeah.
'Cause
I'm laughing because I was a very unconventional teacher when I was in the classroom regularly, but I was a music teacher, so my classrooms were already kind of different as it was.
Yeah,
I'm sure the Board of Regents factored in there somewhere, like you have to teach this way, this.
but
Yeah.
he would receive like the support of his headmaster, so who was amazed by what he did. So it was this thing where it worked, but the institution could not allow it to be known. So this is the kind of background. And so if you're a teacher, I think it resonates with what you know. And his classes actually were full of actors, but also teachers. There were many teachers who were like, I'm not an actor, but I read your book and I applied it to my classes, and I could see the difference in the students. So he worked with a lot of teachers, with doctors. He worked with Buddhist monks in how to attain the Zen status of mind, how to have a spontaneous mind. He worked with all kinds of people, and that's what's amazing, I think.
That's beautiful.
It is.
I have so many thoughts, and they're escaping. One is, was it your school is La Colque? La Colque?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if I'm going to ask my movement teacher from way back in conservatory, George Lewis, who is really into movement. He studied in Paris, but I think you guys have a reputation of movement, a lineage of movement. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like many schools, which is so important, Laura. I wouldn't say it's an aspect of drama training here, movement in the body, but you'll find certain schools put more into it than others, like Uta Hagen Institute in HB Studios in New York City. She was really into movement in the body, but not so many other techniques focus on it. Where I noticed French influence, you guys really, it's just part of, I think, culturally. Speaking of that, culturally, just a quick question, Ian, with Keith. Do you and this is just for my own, just because I have so many cultures on my mind. And I know British humor is maybe, should I say, different than American humor, different than French humor.
Yes.
Would
It's
you,
different than American.
yeah, would you say his humor was British kind of sensibility, or was it just all over the place because he studied with so many people all over the world?
There's
Just
there's
just a question
definitely
that came.
some British humor involved in his for example, in his books. What's good what sets Keith's books apart from other improv books, in my opinion, is that he speaks from he has a voice where when you read him, you're like
Mhm.
in the classroom with him from when he was teaching. So you read his books, and it's like uh, when I teach, I usually say this, and then the students usually do this, which is normal, and then I say this, and they say that, and
Mm.
so you're in the classroom with him, and that's why so many he gives a lot of examples of improvisations that he wrote down during his classes or during his shows, so you can find them in his books, and a lot of them have a quirkiness to them,
Mhm.
and the humor, I find it very different from the American humor.
Mm.
Uh, for example, there's one where he says, there's a guy who sits on a chair, and he says, my leg is itching. And the other person says, it's a class about blocking, I think. So the other guy says, but it cannot itch because you have a wooden leg. And he's so it's supposed to show that blocking is not a good thing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Right.
Because you say my leg is itching, and the other improviser says you have a wooden leg. It's supposed to undermine the idea that
Right.
your leg is itching, right?
Yeah.
And which is another great Keith thing where he says blocking is generally bad, but there are times when it's good.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
if you can over accept the blocking, then you can make a great scene. So he's
Mhm.
like, the other person says, "Oh, you're right, my wooden leg. Oh, I think there's worms in it.
All
That's
right.
why it's
Yeah,
itching."
yeah, yeah. I told you never to mention my wooden leg again.
Yeah. And then the other guy is like, "Oh yeah, you're right." And now it's spreading to the chair. Oh no. And a lot of Keith's style is about unlocking the subconscious. So he says it in his book. It says, if you unlock the subconscious, there's a risk that you might say obscene things, perverse things, things that
It
are,
happens sometimes.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But he says it's good. Of course, don't do it for the shock value, but if it's the thing that comes to you, say it. And you should be protected by the context of the class. And if it's a show, maybe don't say 100% of your weirdest, darkest thoughts, but allow your subconscious to express itself. And if you do, the scenes are often about revealing what was latent in the scene, what was present in the scene, but that we didn't verbalize it. So this worm inside the wooden leg, I think it's one of these images that when you think about it, it creates an effect on your mind. It's funny, but at the same time, it's weird. And a lot of Keith's work is like that. And if you think about it, it's to me it's similar to Monty Python, right?
Mhm.
Like the Ministry of Silly Walks, or
Mhm.
I know a lot of them. Their sketches because they're so vivid, you know.
Mhm.
I think there's definitely a style, a British style in not only like the theory of improv, but the style of improv that he teaches.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, actually, I had a follow-up question. You had mentioned that like I guess the French way of improv or acting, it's different than the American way. Or just other countries in general. I would be curious, what do you mean by that? Like, what is something that would be considered, I don't know, funny in France that maybe Americans wouldn't think about? Or, and I'm sorry if that's worded weirdly,
if I
but
if I
I'm
if
very
I may,
intrigued.
the first thing that comes to
Okay.
mind was my mom would tell me in German, there's no translation. You know what I mean? So like they'll laugh at something in another
Okay.
language that they can't really explain to you because it's culturally. But Ian, if you
Mm.
have, yeah, whatever you have, Ian,
Yeah.
I just thought
Which,
of that.
I mean, I do get some of that because, like, I think about things like some of the great operas, like Rossini's and stuff like that. The humor is sometimes or like woven in with the music and the words and all of that in the language. And like even a direct translation sometimes doesn't have all that. I think about some of that. So, anyways, yeah, Ian, please share with us. I would love to hear.
Um, I'm gonna talk about maybe the American style, and then I'll talk about the French style. Because I spent some time in the U.S. and I did a lot of improv festivals in the U.S. And I'm not saying this is necessarily you guys case the case for you guys because every group is different. But I think in America, improv has been influenced a lot by the idea of game, the idea of the game of the scene, and this comes from Chicago style, and it spread out to New York a little bit with what was it called? The Amy Schumer,
Mhm.
Tina Fey,
I don't even know. The West Coast was
the
Improv Olympic.
The
UCB,
Saturday
UCB.
Night Live.
Yeah, and
Yeah. Oh, Upright Citizens Brigade.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And for a long time I realized that because I did like the improv IO intensive.
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't do the IO intensive. I did the Second City intensive
Ah.
in Chicago in 2008, and I spent some time in the various theaters there, and I realized that there's kind of a hierarchy in the
Hmm.
United States, uh, where at the top is Saturday Night Live, because at the time when I was there, people were starting improv and they were like saying, "Oh, if I do well, I can go to the main stage, and if I do well, I can go to Second City, and if I do well, I can audition for Saturday Night Live, and if I do
Wow.
well, I can be in Hollywood." So
Yeah.
you were linked, like any person who took an improv class was potentially linked to the great figures of comedy, Mike Myers and Steve Carell and things like that. And we don't have that in France. We're not like, oh,
Mm.
if tomorrow I start an improv class, I can become this star, because we don't have this pathway to like comedy gold, or you know. And so in America, I think the humor that I saw was about sketch. It was about finding a like a little quirkiness
Hmm.
and then expanding on it, and then to the point where it becomes funny, and then you cut.
Right.
And it's very efficient and it's very powerful.
Hmm.
um I know there are other styles in America. I'm thinking of uh well, basically the cities that had theater sports and Johnstone influence,
Hmm.
I think are the improvisers from the Johnstone influence are a little bit more theatrical, so they're a little bit more about story and
Hmm.
narrative, whereas the people who are in the sketch are more about comedy and being funny, right?
Yeah.
Both are fine, but so that's my opinion on like the difference in the American style, and I'm saying that because in France we were influenced by the Canadian style, the Johnstone style, the American style. We I don't think there was a French style, because the French people do le match d'improvisation,
Hmm.
the improv match,
Right.
and the origin of the match is Quebec. It's the they call it the Ligue Nationale d'Improvisation in Montreal,
Hmm.
Hmm.
and they
Right.
did that in the 80s in Paris, and then everyone started doing that. So the origin of the French style is from Quebec. You can it's and the origin of the Quebec style is it was theater people, and their thought was that the hockey rinks were filled, but the theaters were empty. So they took the hockey style, the hockey decorum, the hockey imagery, and they so that's why you can see a
Hmm.
referee with the hockey
Hmm. Hmm.
stripes, you know,
Hmm.
And this is which one? Which format?
le match d'impro,
Oh,
Match.
it is. Okay, Montreal. Got it. Cool.
and they do a fake ice rink. So
I've
they
seen
build,
pictures of this.
yeah, you
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
pictures of that? They build fake ice rink,
So which
and
came
then
first? Keith Johnstone wanting excitement like that in the theater, or what is it? La
le
Marche
match.
de
Le match
Improvisation?
d'improvisation.
So
Yeah.
Le Match emerged, I think, in 76 or 77 in Quebec.
Yeah.
And like theater sports emerged in 76 or 77 in Calgary. So it's like
Interesting.
the two opposite ends of Canada.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Keith was experimenting on it when he was still in Britain, because he emigrated
Hmm.
to Canada. And I know that the people who created Le Match were theater people. Same as Keith, he's a theater person.
Hmm.
Like the Second City people, or like Paul Sills, what's her name? The mother of improv in America. What was her name?
Oh, I should know this.
Ah,
Spolin?
Viola Spolin, right?
See.
In my opinion, their tradition is more like cabaret
Hmm.
review, right? So you go to the theater and you see many different little acts,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Whereas in the theater, you go and you see a full play.
Right.
And I think these are like fundamental differences in the way we approach improv. So that's why in the match, you see a whole play of a battle between two teams, right? So it tells a little
Hmm.
story
Right.
throughout, and the improvisations, the
Mm.
improv are just like little events.
Are they
But it
connected? The theme,
no,
do you
they're
say?
connected by the theme of sports,
Oh,
right?
got it. Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
Competition.
yeah, so
Yeah.
and so that's where the French style comes from.
Hmm.
But when you see Canadians play le match, it's very different from when you see French people play le match.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So Canadian people, I think Quebec people especially, are very playful. So they play it like little children play an event. In France, it's very serious.
Ah,
It's like they
interesting.
play the match like it's like very intense and every point counts and when you get a point you're like yeah and when you lose a point you're like no and you have and French people love to contest to protest so in the match you can protest when the referee makes a decision so you can be like because the referee hands that's a big difference between theater sports and le match in le match you have penalties
Oh, yeah.
and there are 18 or 30 I don't know I forgot 18 different penalties 18 penalties
Wow. Okay.
yes this
That's
is
a
why
lot of penalty.
That's like Keith in theater sports has the basket over the head
yeah
of the horde.
there's
Do.
there's one there's one penalty in theater sports there's 18 in le match
Right. That's
this to
crazy.
me is completely nuts this is why I don't do le match because I think it's too much but French people love penalties French people love rules they
That should be
love
a
They love the
T-shirt.
rules.
That should be a T-shirt.
yeah
French people love penalties.
That's
and
funny.
so you have penalty for you did not respect the context. You have a penalty because
Yeah, of
you
course.
use the cliche. You have a penalty because you didn't listen. You have a penalty because you
Well, that's
used
an educated audience.
an
That's
accent.
awesome,
It
actually.
is so it's
I
Yeah.
very
kind of like that.
Right?
pedagogical,
Yeah.
but you go on stage not making mistakes, right? You shouldn't make mistakes, so it changes the mindset.
Yeah,
I think on the long run, you go
definitely.
not to be punished instead of being free. I think that's my personal opinion. It's not representative,
Mm.
but anyway, French people love that. And when you go in France, there's the match, like the actual performing time of improv is I think much lower than you when you watch it in Quebec because so much time is spent contesting the penalties
Hmm.
or booing the referee or there's a thing that you do in France is and in Quebec you they hand out socks to the
To throw?
audience
Socks.
and they can throw it uh,
I had a feeling.
yeah they can throw it on the
We'll have to
referee
bring Nerf balls to the
yeah
show, Laura.
I
They can
I
throw them at
love that
us like
idea of
tomatoes.
throwing socks.
I
That
love it too.
sounds
It
hilarious.
reminds me of the old throwing tomatoes, like at the
it is
vaudeville.
that's
Yeah.
why the creators of the match thought about. But it's very interesting. Like when it started in Quebec, they did that to throw at the players,
That's what
right?
I'm thinking for us, Laura.
I
Like,
like this idea.
stop.
And
Stop the
and
scene.
because it would be like, oh, there's a player going on stage. Oh, oh, he's saying something that the audience hates. Boo, throw it.
That's so
Or
cute. That's so
he's
cute.
being too cheap. There you go. Take a shot, right? And when it moved to France, it was used to throw at the referee.
Mm.
They stopped sending it on the players. They sent it on the referee because we like French people love to contest authority,
Hmm.
right?
Interesting.
Uh, it's also interesting that you find the same thing as in Le Match in theater sports. In theater sports, they had something called pieing. So the losing team would get pies to their face by the winners, right?
Oh goodness.
And this is very Monty Python thing, right? Like, or slapstick. And it would create amazing images. And for marketing, it's great, right? So you say, come see our show. There will be pieing at the end,
Yeah. How
and it
cool.
would be a way to bring people to the theater. But
Yeah.
so you go to France, and I think the way French people play, in my opinion, is with ego,
Hmm.
which is something I'm not a fan of. But it's because when people in France go on stage, they go with a sense of importance. So it's not always the best, I think, for improv and spontaneity, but for theatricality, for like being more theatrical, it's
Hmm.
good because one of the big teachings in the French style is you should never go on stage without a character,
Mm.
right? Don't go on stage without a character. We don't want to see you. We want to see your character.
We need that more. We need that
We've
more.
been having lots of discussions in class about that, Gil,
Yeah.
while
Yeah.
you've been away.
Whereas in
Awesome.
America, I think it's much more accepted that you go on stage as yourself
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
you're more like connected to the other person.
right.
In a more like actor studio style, like
Hmm.
connect with what you're feeling in the moment. But in France, that's why in France you have all of these big characters always. And so a big thing in France, I think, is of the humor in improv is because we do Le Match. Generally, in Le Match, you have two different things. You have they say improvisation mixte ou improvisation comparée. So
Hmm.
you either do mix or compared. Compared
Yeah.
is team A, team B, and then you select the audience votes for the winner, which is like theater sports.
Hmm.
And then when they say mix, you have to send one player, two player, three player, and you have to mix with the other team. And then the audience votes for
Oh,
the best team inside of the improvisation.
well, that's
And
neat.
it's cool, but
It's another element.
it's kind of tricky because then the things you do in the improvisation are things that will earn you points
Hmm.
instead of like just doing what's best for the scene necessarily.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of times in France, the humor is because there is another thing that they do is called caucus.
Hmm.
So it's like when the referee says, "Oh, here's the next improv," the title will be the blue banana,
Hmm.
whatever, you know. And then you have 30 seconds. Each team is like, so it's they prepare the improvisation for 30 seconds,
Hmm.
and then they go on stage.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a very French thing, right?
It's called cuckoos.
Caucus, Caucus, and you do that, and then you go on stage. So a lot of the times, like one team will be like, "You're a cowboy, and you're in the western, and you're on your horse, and you're looking for gold." And the other team is like, "Oh, you're a plumber, and you're sad because you don't see your children enough, and you are in New York on a skyscraper." And so you have two improvisers coming on stage like this with radically different ideas about the scene. And then it's usually funny because the cowboy will be like, "Hey, what you doing here? I'm looking to clean your pipes." And everyone is like, "Whoa, this is so funny."
Mm.
So the humor of the situation is looking at the improvisers trying to merge their stories. Uh, so I think that's a big part of what's funny for us.
Mm.
Yeah, interesting.
This
Sort
is
of
like,
almost bringing is it so it sounds like it's almost bringing in like the ridiculous to the mundane. So kind of the, you know,
absurd to
yeah, like bringing them
everyday
together. That
life or
sounds
the
like
slice of life. Or
mhm.
I
Yeah,
think,
with a form of irony thrown in
yeah,
there.
we love
and
irony.
the
Yeah.
audience is looking at both, like who's gonna win, who's gonna manage to bring the other to their universe. So they're also looking at it from a game perspective, like sports fans looking at the moves of their champions, you know. And generally it becomes absurd, and French people love absurdity, and that's what's funny to a lot of French people.
Now, can I ask, also when it comes to like performance, let's say things like clothing and attire, is there something that is more like, especially like, I'm thinking of just like whether it's your country or countries abroad, is there a type of dress that is usually more preferred, like more formal or more relaxed? Whereas I know in the US, when it comes to performance, we try and do things that won't distract from the performance. And I wasn't sure if that's a different case somewhere else.
Ah.
Well, because the match has such a long legacy here, a lot of people still perform wearing Le Match clothes. So basically, they're working hockey jerseys.
The hockey jersey. Okay, yes.
But then, like 20 years ago, I think people started to say, "Hey, let's do things that are not Le Match." And what they did when they moved there was that they just removed the jersey, and what they were wearing underneath was generally like running shoes and like black
Okay.
pants, black shirts. So it's more like what you're saying of don't distract, right? And
Right. Okay.
allow the audience to project.
Mhm.
But I think more recently, and some of us, especially under the influence of Keith Johnstone, like one of the ways we say it is try to dress a little bit nicer than the audience.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Keith would say you want the audience to want to take you home after the show.
Yeah.
So you need to be like a little bit like on a date, like
Ooh,
be attractive,
yeah.
you know?
Exactly.
Be attractive.
And one thing came true. He said, and the audience will want to buy you drinks. You know, that as well as failing happily. You know, failing happily instead of the opposite. And Zach got a drink bought for him from Joanne and Dave, who are becoming fast fans of ours. They actually paid for tickets to a show they couldn't make it to, and then they won the lotto. We do a $25 gift of the night. We give $25 back from what people paid that night, and from a drawing from tickets, and they won not being there, which is a little strange for the audience because I wonder if people thought we were creating some scam, you know. So, no one here was. Anyway, I must say I know we wanted to keep this to an hour, but I say half jokingly this is going to be like a 6-hour podcast, and I'm going to do this as a masterclass. So, I just want to talk about the cultural things real quick, Laura.
Yes.
Improv is huge in Paris, if I'm not wrong, Ian, and
more reasons to be in Europe,
right? And in Naples, they're crazy about it, and they have. Do you know Mara, Ian? Mara from Naples.
I don't know.
I wish I knew her last name. I got to spend time with her troupe. She's doing something with the Brussels troupe right now, and I think it's called Blink. And Laura, it's like a field trip for both of them. They're going to go to Belgium, I think, and do act with each other. And I actually brought up to her if she would like to see us come over in some way, shape, or form. And her mouth kind of dropped, and she got super excited. So Ian, that's something I'm bringing back to the group as far as investigation process. Process investigatione. I don't know what language I'm speaking anymore.
I don't know what language you're speaking either.
I'm in Italy now. Everything's oldie. But real quick, Ian, I wanted to, if I didn't write all this down, this is such gold you were talking about. Speaking of which, you called comedy gold, which is a much more diplomatic way of putting kind of our U.S. sensibility of kind of star power, or we tend to lionize actors, right? We have this starving artist mentality where the masses feel like if you're, and I'm generalizing, but a lot of artists feel like if they're not going through a lot and challenged and poverty, maybe that they're not acting. And then we have this other spectrum of the Julia Roberts and the Tom Hanks and the the untouchable actors and in between. I'm not sure if we have a middle class, Laura. And well, we do. That would be like, YouTube or B movie actors and things like that. But it also kind of goes hand in hand with, not really, but you talked about the comedy and stand up, and Laura can attest. I'm infatuated with the serious scene, and that Keith wanted to integrate everything into the night for variety and not just have soup and soup and soup and soup and soup.
Yeah,
you have to have your salad in your main course. But and it's so beautiful when that happens because stuff comes out and I end up crying, looking weird. But I just wanted to say that, and I also wanted to give a shout out to Randy Dixon in Seattle. Did you meet Randy, Ian? Have you met Randy?
I've never met him, but I know who he is. And
Unexpected Productions? Yeah. Awesome. I had the pleasure of starting with him in theater sports in Seattle, which I didn't know I was starting with a legend, but he definitely is. I saw him in Berlin. Maura from Naples happened to be in the audience the same night I was in. I just realized when we met in Naples, which blows my mind, the inner, connection of our paths and things. But he is a storyteller extraordinaire and just also respects that improv is all inclusive and not just comedy. It doesn't have to be just be funny, even though inherently it is, because we don't know what the hell we're going to say next. So, I wanted to bring up real quick a quote, and I wish I had it in front of me, that Maya Angelou said, which is really beautiful, and it keeps me going. And I'm just looking at my thing, and she said, hoping I can find this quick because I can paraphrase, but if I don't come up with it right away. Well,
while you're looking at that, looking up that, Ian, I'm curious, what is something you think you've learned about yourself while performing or just on your journey as you've gone through all these wonderful experiences?
There's got to be a million.
Sorry, I just sprung that out of nowhere for you.
So the one of the useful tools, of course, is status. The classic Keith Johnstone exercise. I use it all the time in my personal life or my professional life. I teach it, of course, to students, but also in corporate world, where when I start talking about it for managers or CEOs, or even people who are more in the service industry, or people who have more at the lower end of the hierarchy, it's useful for anyone anywhere. Basically, recognizing the body language of the person in front of you and adapting to it is such a powerful tool, I think. So that's been very useful for me. One thing I maybe learned doing improv, and I'm glad I did improv and not necessarily written theater or sculpture or mountain hiking, or specifically, I think good improv to me is about allowing expression of the inner self, because we don't have a text. We are making things up, and generally we want to play it safe, so we stay on the surface. But improv allows you to reach deeper into yourself and to connect deeper with your partner and the audience. And sometimes the connections that you make on stage are really deep, really profound. I'm really glad I got to experience that as an actor.
That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. I found the quote, you guys. Maya said, "There is no," I can't read it without breaking down. There is no greater agony, and I take her words really personally because she's such a master of words. There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. And she just makes me think of humanity that she must know about, that is killing people. It hurts to not be able to say who you are or what you want, and I think that goes hand in hand with freedom around the world, and people that have it and people that don't, and things like that, but also personal freedom or permission to be yourself, or knowing who you are, or so many things go into that. So for me, that is what improv could do for people, is
Mm-hmm.
surprise what's inside, and and it comes out in scenes, but also I think internal work. It's like Laura, one of your compadres with me, wrote to me that they don't worry so much about what people think about them anymore, and that to me is like, if that was one thing I was told in these past 2 years, that would be it. That would be all I would need to say this was worth it,
Mm.
for that one person. But I think a lot of other people are experiencing with improv. So I can't imagine what improv's doing around the world, with
Yeah.
millions of people who are doing it and watching it, and
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you figure even like historically, if you go back to things like jesters and clowns back,
there you go.
in the day,
Yeah. They do it with
historically,
joy and fun, and yeah.
they were able to, though, give a voice to the words that could not be spoken by anyone
Mm.
else. Because
Yeah.
if a jester was able to make a joke and criticize, let's say the king's cruel treatment of his little peasants, I mean, and everyone laughs, the jester is safe to say that while creating that sense of realization and giving a voice to those who are not able to. Someone else says, "Oh, that king's terrible." Well, okay, off with your head. The jester
Exactly.
makes a joke about it. Oh, I can laugh about that. And then afterwards in his bedchambers, he can be like, huh, okay, maybe I should reevaluate that. Am I killing everyone off too fast?
Laura, I love that your head action went into that, It's like
There's a lot of it. I move a lot.
very cool. Well, I'm just floored at what we talked about today. And I'm wanted to respect your timing, and I'm looking at the time, and wow, we're like right at about an hour. Did you guys want to keep going, talk more, play games, wrap it up? It's up
Yeah,
to
let's
you.
do maybe like 10 more minutes if you want.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
What should we do? Should we play a game?
Sure.
sure, we can try it.
Um, what I don't want to put you on the spot, Ian, but I know you guys taught me something that day. I didn't have my book in hand, so maybe you can
You want
uh
me to give you a game that we can
mention
play?
a game. Yeah, because I'll write this one down. I
There's a game that I like. It's called Speaking in Numbers. I don't think we did it, but
no? Okay.
so basically we count together from 1 to, let's say, 20. But it's not about counting. It's about making sentences where the words are actually numbers. So instead of saying "How are you," I would say 1, 2, 3, and
Oh,
then
okay.
you would answer 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Do they
and
have to go
then
in sequential order, the
yeah, you have
numbers?
to go in the order, and we stop when we reach 20.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's short of a scene,
It's a
and
short, yeah.
you don't get to do like a 20 character, 20 number
No.
rant.
Oh, you can do a rant,
But the
but
scene would be over
it
at
has
20.
to be inside the 20, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
And
okay.
then later on, we can go to 50, we can go to 100, we can go to
Oh,
200.
gotcha, gotcha, gotcha,
But
gotcha.
for now, just 20.
Okay.
That's really neat.
So should we do the three of us or
Please, yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
all right?
Do
So
do we go on an emotion, or is it a scene from nothing?
it's from nothing. So you
Okay.
just go like I'll just start. So I'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
6, 7.
8, 9, 10.
11.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
16,
16,
17.
18,
20.
Yeah.
I
Great.
love it. That was a momentary disruption of communication. I'm summarizing the scene, and it's like Ian had the answers. I was like, oh, and Laura's like, okay, well, but this has to happen too, and I'm like, well, duh.
Yeah.
That really forces you to listen to the person's inflections in their voice. Like, what
Yeah.
are they conveying with that? Because clearly, I don't speak numbers.
I would say Ian had the status in that scene.
Mhm.
He was the calm one that kind of knew what was going on.
I taught it. I taught the game. So you guys did great. I think it's hard because there's three of us,
Yeah.
and on Zoom as well.
Is it usually
Um,
two people, Ian?
I usually do it with two, but you can
Okay.
do
Yeah.
3, 4, 5. It's just that the more people you bring in, the more you have to listen and be clear, you know? So what you said, Laura, is perfect, right? You have to listen to the inflection actually, and what you did, Gil, was that we make sense of what has been said, even though we don't have the words.
Yeah.
So just with the inflection, we can get a lot of meaning out, right?
Yeah.
And the other teaching axis, like the teaching goal with this game is it's a theatrical game for me because it sounds more like theater in the way that it's good if you have a beginning and an end in your sentence. So sometimes we want to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then we just make like do 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 do. But you can also go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it's like in French we say you have to send an arrow. You have to
direct. I was thinking direct. Yeah.
It's a shot, right? Every sentence is a shot. So you can have inflection, but it has to have a beginning and an end really clear. This is what this game teaches also.
Yeah. It I guess I don't know why I'm thinking of one word scenes and 3-word scenes, but I love 1-word scenes. I love the 3-word scenes. To me are, I don't want to say easier, nothing's easy about improv, but it's more doable, and then you can wrap it up. But can we play a 1-word scene game? See what happens. It's strange. Right. 3 words I could see probably work it out. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But 1-word scene. So anything you want to do from nothing, but you can only speak 1 word at a time. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Laura.
What?
Ian.
Anger.
No.
Yes.
She
always.
Come on. CMON.
No.
Sorry.
Change.
Sorry.
Really?
Yes.
Last.
Promise.
Done.
No.
Maybe.
Me.
Okay.
Her.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh. Let's see. We can put into that what it was, whatever you will. So I was reminded when Ian said about spitting things out and letting your subconscious out and welcoming whatever comes. And Laura, Ian is a master at permission, giving herself, right? Because Laura, you more than anyone I've seen, even the things where you're uncomfortable with, it's like, oh, did I just say that? But and then it's like you can take that scene there, or sometimes it's shocking and you stop yourself. You know what I mean?
Right.
But now the challenge for all of us is just to keep going and see. And then of course there's a filter, like you were saying, Ian, especially in performance, but also even in the classroom or around others. You're never here to hurt anyone. Mm-hmm. I mean, 1 or 2 things came up recently. I watched somebody else say that it was like, ouch, it must have hurt the person, but they just took it in and let it go. And it was about weight or looks and stuff like that. And it's like, where'd that come from? Is that serious? Be nice. Anyway,
but we need to allow people to say whatever they want, but without hurting others.
Exactly.
And sometimes people will say mean things, but they didn't do it for the shock value or to provoke, and we need to forgive.
Exactly.
But we also know that there are students or improvisers who do things on purpose to shock and get a reaction.
Randy calls that gratuity. Have you heard the word gratuity? Laura's. I was just explaining it to someone else. I think Maura in Naples. That the only time I hear it is in improv, and the gratuitous is like that. doing it for the ego and the
Mm.
wink wink or telling a joke and at the sake of the scene,
Hmm.
or overdoing something to the point of, trying to get a laugh instead of just being honest about it and letting the laugh come or not.
Hmm.
But it's so funny to talk about because, like, when I talk about this stuff, it like makes me sound like I might know a little bit of what I'm talking about. But when I do improv, I'm like, I don't know anything about what I'm talking about. So, no,
And of
I'm being
course,
hard on myself.
Gil, like many of us, struggles with imposter syndrome. He's actually quite talented and amazing, and it's one of those things. He always jokes about not knowing what he's doing, but yeah, everyone else around is like, oh, you seem to be pretty.
All right. I won't. I'll try not to. Somebody called me on false humility once, and that's not cool. I was like, oh, that's. I hope I'm not doing that. So,
I
but
just
No,
want everyone to own how amazing they are.
that's awesome.
I can
Yeah.
attest to your talent.
Mm,
I
thank you. Thank you.
remember because we did monologues at the end of our session, and I still remember what you did. So
The little soliloquy.
yeah,
The
it was
Yeah,
strong.
yeah.
It was very strong.
That was yeah. Just working with you guys. It was a dream. It was a dream. I left there and I was like, okay, and that started my trip. That was like the first week, and it just blew my mind. And here you are, Ian. Thank you for being here. So cool.
It's a pleasure.
So can you tell us what you're working on, please?
Me?
Yeah, your
Uh,
shows or your classes and.
Yeah.
so what I have a company which is called Again Productions in Paris, and it's based on the again of the Johnstone again. Like it's a tool that he uses to say if you're stuck in a scene or in a game and you don't feel comfortable, just raise your arms, say again, and the other person will clap and will celebrate that it's okay to throw it away and start again, right? So that's
Awesome.
why we're called Again Productions because we want to be able to do things, fail, and start again.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So we have one show that is called so it's a basic improv show. It's every Saturday. We have another show which is called Fushigi, and it's more physical. It's about we're trying to do an improvisation, a 1 hour long improvisation in the style of Hayao Miyazaki. So we bring in creatures from other worlds, female leads who try to save the world or just be in peace with the world, and it's usually quite poetic and beautiful. And
Wow.
this we do irregularly, and we do it on tour. So generally, when a theater is interested, we go there and we perform it, but we don't have regular production. And we're working on a production of Richard III as well. So that's
Wow.
something that we want to create maybe in 1 year or 2 years, not improvised. Uh, and lastly, what we do improv in museums. So we worked for the Louvre, and basically it's one of the guided tours that they offer.
Oh,
You can
cool.
you go with two improvisers, and we go in front of the paintings, and we do improv in front of the
Get out
paintings.
of town. I'm getting
That
what they
sounds
call in Italy
wonderful.
Peladoca. I hope that's Italy and
Peladoca.
that's by Goosebumps. What? You do an improv about the painting
Yeah,
or
yeah,
the
yeah.
artist or whatever?
I
It could be
love
the
that idea.
artist. It could
At the Louvre
at the
of the
Louvre, yeah,
Louvre?
of the
My
Louvre,
gosh,
in the
that's
Louvre, by the
insane.
Louvre, with the Louvre. It's amazing. And
That does sound amazing. Yeah.
sometimes it's very interesting because we consider ourselves like two clown guides. Like we say nonsense and we say things that are not true about the painters, the painting, and we perform with the other visitors of the Louvre, and we say, "Have you seen this painting?" Or "Look, there's a lion," and we try to interact as much. We try to bring like a fun and just the absurdity inside the museum because museums are generally places where everyone is very serious
Right.
and
Totally.
very like polite and we've done that for the general public, but the Louvre has also asked us to do it with like youths that are unserved, right? No, how I don't know how to say in English, like underserved, right? Or
Yeah,
like
probably like at risk
at
or
risk, yeah, at risk
yeah.
youth, and
Oh,
they've never set foot in a museum, right?
Yeah.
And the Louvre is like, it's your museum, it's free for you. You
Oh,
should come here, and they still don't, because there's like a barrier of guilt or of feeling not welcomed. And with our thing, they experience the Louvre, and basically because we're just having fun, at the end they're like, I had a good time in this museum, and I want to come back, and I want to come back and see other paintings and other painters, and learn about it, or just have fun with the paintings, look at it, imagine, and it's really a nice project. I love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
unbelievable.
That's
That's
so wonderful.
yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
What a way to bring just communication down even more to those who I mean to everyone. Like I think that for me personally, that's something I have loved about improv is just the improvement with communication, whether or not I understand where someone's coming from or know them, like that it opens that door because
Oh, oh.
it's just responding to them and actively listening and having fun with them in a good-natured way and it comes across. So that's
Laura,
neat.
Laura, you shocked me when you were talking in a different context on a different day, and you brought up the scene that Sam had done, like in the last class, like if you're on a fisher boat, if you're a Eskimo on a fisherman boat, or
Yeah.
Israeli Eskimo or something.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like or going to Israel or
You're going
something.
to Israel on a canoe or something like
Yeah, you had totally hit it, and I was like, "Wow, well, you were listening,"
I
and
do
that was a week
listen.
later. Me
I
and
don't
Laura,
always look like I am, but I usually am
um,
listening.
me and Laura had both communicated about listening in. If I asked anybody what improv has helped them with or done, I think for me and Laura, it's been listening in
Mm.
different parts of our lives because she wrote an email to me that was super beautiful about listening to her kids, and
Mhm.
I told her how I was able to call back conversations when people forgot what they were talking about, and I would never be able to do that before because I was too busy thinking about what I was going to say next, and missing
Mhm.
half of the conversation. And I had called it back like 3 times, and I was like, "Wow, I'm listening. That's weird. Must be improv." So, really cool. Hey, can I ask you one question before we go, Ian?
Yes.
You said you do some university work. Who generates that work? Because I'm just looking for ways to, get Laura and these brilliant people out there. And you said it's not a
Um,
regular thing. Is that you reaching out, you marketing to universities, or do they find you? Would you
we're
say?
not great at marketing,
None of us are.
so I think, but
Yeah.
I
It's
think
hard.
the beauty of the business model that theater companies and improv companies have, especially improv companies, is that the three areas of business can reinforce each other. So you have audiences, you have students, and you have corporate work. So what we found is that inside your audience, there's
Mhm.
people with businesses, and there's
Mhm.
people who are teachers, there's people
Mhm.
who are at the university, and then when you give a class among your students, the same. And when you do corporate jobs, these people have jobs, families, whatever,
Okay.
and they also become your audience. So when I do corporate work, generally I say, "Come to your show," and then my next show I get to sell 10 tickets because I just gave a workshop. So
Yeah, yeah.
so if you look inside your already existing network, you
Network.
have so many opportunities,
Word of
but
mouth,
you
really.
have to market
Right.
yourself
Yeah.
at the right time. So
Yeah.
The right time.
at the end of your show is a good time, but
Hmm.
don't be too long because everyone wants to leave.
Exactly.
For your class, you should do it, but not too much because they already paid for you, so they don't want to be like blah blah blah. And for corporate stuff, also, it's the same. It depends what type of class you're teaching, and if you have a good relation. So for
Hmm.
universities, generally it was because I had in my students like
Hmm.
teachers at universities, and the way they bring us in is either for a one-shot class on public speaking or
Mhm.
on
Hmm.
communication, but then you can really think about the topics that students might face. For example, you could teach a class on how to nail an interview using improv, right?
Yeah.
So basically, just
Mm.
saying yes and is already doing 80% of the work.
Right.
Mhm.
Because when you're compared to other candidates who will be like, nah, or yeah, but, and if you have a candidate who's like, yes,
Yes.
and I think we could do blah blah blah, and
Yeah.
immediately you
Yeah.
become a strong candidate. So if you think about what issues students are facing, you can tailor specific classes for them, and
Yeah.
then I'm sure like the deans of whatever program you're working with will be interested. And
Mm.
then sometimes I get a semester long class, so it's like once a week,
Hmm.
because it could be because public speaking is so important in their program, so they might give it more space. And the last way that I work with universities is because there are in France at least there's companies that specialize in giving out training. So
Okay.
they already work out with different universities or different businesses.
Oh wow.
And if you manage to be in their catalog, then they can send you to their clients. And that happens a lot for me. I have
That's
maybe
crazy.
two agencies I work with, and they send us to different businesses.
Those agencies are they're like for new hires and for team building
Yeah, it can be
and
that,
companies.
or it's it we any in French we'd say formation professionnelle, so professional training, and then they have like five or six topics, what like management 101, HR 101,
Totally.
whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
That's a
then
brilliant concept.
they give these trainings in companies, and the Ian, the improv teacher or actor,
Mm.
I can teach management 101 because I know their stuff, but I do it in my own style or using improv or
Hmm.
Mm.
so if you can reach out to people who are already handing out training in businesses or universities, it can be a way to put a foot there.
Cool, cool. And when I get back, one of my neighbors, and Laura, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, she's gonna help me with education residencies, getting
Yeah.
into the schools. And I know you'll have a field day, but B will be a powerful person to have part of this, you know what I mean, with your education background. And
Yeah, that's another thing that you need to put forward. It's of course you need to put your
mhm,
art training on your resume, but anything that you did with education or teaching
Hmm.
or training,
yeah.
really put it out. And I think someone told me that I was already like quite conscious of it, but when you talk to businesses, I don't think you should talk to them as an improviser. You shouldn't say, "Hey,
No.
I'm the improv guy," blah blah
Right.
blah. You should
Hmm.
be like, "No, I'm the business guy
Hmm.
who can do improv."
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you should like wear a suit or wear
Yeah.
a tie or whatever and have a little business card and
Hmm.
anything because corporations and universities are scared that
Hmm.
they're going to hire the wrong person, right? So you need to
Right.
do everything you can to reassure them
Yeah.
and at the same time differentiate yourself by saying improv is amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If I can share real quickly, Ian, I got a new degree and I did my thesis project on improv in
Yeah,
industries and corporations and things. And they chose it top in class, which is like, okay, crazy. And then now I can go to the schools and give them this, academic
definitely. Yeah.
paper, and I love it. And it's based on research and things. So
And I
I
think you
think,
should look into the Applied Improv Network. Have you
oh yeah,
heard
I've
about
heard of
it?
that. Um,
It's basically people who do
I've,
improv in organizations, and they do.
right.
There's two conferences per year. I think one is always in the US and one is always outside. And then
Oh,
you can network and you can learn, and it's a really cool professional network for.
you know who I think is really big into that. I wasn't going to plug her book, but Kate Coppett. Do you know
Yeah,
Kate
I
Coppett?
have her
Yeah,
book. I have it in
this is the
my
one, Laura, Training to
wait.
Imagine.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
gonna grab it. So, well, Kat, I guess we're giving you a plug here. Kat Coppett,
Surprise.
Training to Imagine, and also there's a cool forward by I'm not gonna try to pronounce his name.
Can't find it, but I have it.
Gotcha. I hear you. Yeah, I've got my little, got my storytellers. I brought this traveling, Laura, and it's been a big problem in the luggage. Keith Johnstone's fat book. That's why I literally went out today and bought this.
Now you can take it with you.
Since I'm checking bags anyway, I bought a big one. Anyway, so okay, you guys, I could keep going till literally what? 10 midnight, which would be a lot longer for Laura because she's 6 hours behind.
Limits. I do
have
to go
actually very
to
cool
parties later on. So
you realize we're in 3 countries right now. Laura's in America, Ian's in France, and I'm in Sicily, Italy. That's insane. Yeah, that's insane.
That's fabulous.
It really is. It really is cool. So Ian, thank you so much. I'm going to say your name, Ian Parizot.
Yeah.
Parizot.
Yes.
And Lauren, Laura, your name wasn't there. I just noticed that. Laura, tell me your last name. Koppenheffer. Koppenheffer. Yes. I was getting the vowels mixed up in my head. Koppenheffer. And I'm Gil Polk, and I hope this, I don't know, inspired someone or it amused someone or gave someone to look at. Ian, where can people find you? What's your Facebook or website? Or
Ian Parizot, IAN Parizot, Parizot, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever.
Awesome.
My company is Again Productions .fr.
Cool.
Keep in touch.
I guess if anyone's going to Paris, definitely go see the show. And
absolutely.
Okay. I hope we can perform together one day, Ian.
Yes.
With, all this craziness going on.
Yes,
Laura.
Yes.
Laura will be there. When Laura knew I was coming here to Europe, she was like, "Wait, I want to go." Actually, to Paris when I mentioned you, Ian. And she was like, "Wait, I want to go."
Time.
And I was like, "Go." She's like, "When are you going?" I was like, "A week and a half." And she's like, "Oh well, I can't.
I can't pull it together that fast."
Exactly. So, anyway,
next time.
Spring
definitely.
maybe. Yeah. Okay. All right, you guys. Okay. Thank you, Ian.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you for the masterclass. You too, Laura. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye, you guys. Have a good rest of the day. I'll stop the recording and then we can say goodbye again because I love you guys.
Like a diamond, I just keep getting better, so keep a bringing on the pressure. Can't break me, can't break me,